His real agenda, the president's agenda, is going to destroy you financially. And most people do not understand how this works. And in this video, I'm going to explain it. I'm going to use the housing market as an example because the president just came out with a new plan, a plan to give home buyers a $10,000 tax credit. And he even worked out a way of giving home sellers a $10,000 tax credit. But it is a massive trap. And people need to wake up to the realities of what really happens when economies fail, that dictatorships get larger and get worse. Under the guise of free money, people become more enslaved, more ensnared in debt than ever before. And it is an age-old plan. From century to century, empire to empire, it is getting worse. And a lot of people don't understand that the water is increasing in temperature. And a lot of us are frogs boiling in water. I'm going to share a story out of CNBC and CBS, and I'm going to briefly go over it. And then I'm going to explain in detail how the housing market is collapsing right now in front of you. I know it's hard to believe, but I went through this in 2005 when I sold all of my homes. And it is very serious. It is imperative that you prepare for this now. And I have nothing in this video to sell you at all. You need to get ready for this and not fall for the traps of what is coming in this presidential election. This story out of CBS says President Biden wants to give homebuyers a $10,000 tax credit. Here is who would qualify. It says buying a home has become increasingly expensive or out of reach for Americans. And even if you do not own a home now, or you don't ever want to buy a home, this is going to affect you, and this is why. The housing wealth effect is the greatest wealth effect in the world. It is greater than a stock market wealth effect when the stock markets are hitting all-time highs. It is greater than a crypto right now wealth effect. Why? Because the housing market is so massive and it creates so much euphoria in people's minds. When their home is worth a lot, they tend to spend money, even money they do not have. And I'm going to talk about that as well in a second. So Americans, it says here, are grappling with high interest rates and surging home values. In his State of the Union address on Thursday, President Joe Biden proposed a new tax credit that would provide $10,000 to home buyers. He's also proposing a separate $10,000 tax credit for home owners who sell their starter home in order to jump into a bigger home that would help melt, or it could help melt, a real estate market in which homeowners are locked into low mortgage rates during the pandemic. So let me explain how this works. First off, home prices are only going up in certain areas. Very few areas now in this country are seeing home prices go up, and they're going up maybe $1,000 or $2,000 or maybe $3,000. Not much when you look at the price tag of the average home sitting around $480,000 to $520,000 across the country. Okay, so when people say they're going up a few dollars, and they're going up because there's so few homes on the market. And there's just enough people that have no concept of what's going on and how housing market cycle works, because homes don't always go up in value. They actually do this. And up here, people make money, but most people don't sell. And then down here is when people get foreclosed on and lose their home and go into bankruptcy. But they never really truly tell all their family and friends about that because it is an embarrassing moment in life. Most people don't talk about their bankruptcy woes because they're embarrassed of it. So most people don't understand it unless they go look at the facts. The fact is, there are so few homes on the market, and this is exactly what happened in 2005 because of all kinds of factors. There is not a strong labor market. There is exorbitant home prices, insurance costs, interest payments, and unlike 2005, you can now add higher fuel prices. Fuel prices did go up a little bit around that time, but didn't really peak until 2008. You have higher food prices and higher everything else. This time is so much worse than what we saw back in the 2008 when everyone figured it out, great financial crisis. So what Biden is doing is he is baiting the American people. He is coming out there and he knows exactly the process. And check this out. It says it right here. Biden's proposals, which must be enacted by Congress, were cheered by advocates of affordable housing, with the National Housing CEO David Dorkin calling it the most sequential State of the Union address in more than 50 years. It's because he's a patsy for the president and for their group and for a group of elites that actually want to bankrupt you. I know it sounds crazy, but that's how rich people get richer. They take advantage of situations, and I want you to become one of those type of people. You have to start seeing the writing on the wall. Our president knows that he could turn around and say all kinds of crazy things, like, I want to give every American $10,000. He's actually done it in the recent past with what happened with the student loan crisis. He says, hey, I want to forgive everybody's loans. And then some cool heads in Congress go, are you high? There's no way we can do that. We would expand our money supply, go broke. There would be rioting in the streets from everybody else that didn't have a student loan. Now that their supervisors and their bosses and stuff at work are now getting off scot-free, they're going to be ticked. There's no way we can do this. It's not morally, ethically, or economically right. So he can say all he wants in order to try and buy your vote. Because why wouldn't you want to vote for somebody that just wants to give you money? There was a great man in our country's history that said, once the public understands that they can vote themselves prosperity, democracy is over. And it's very true. People are voting because they are desperate. They want a change. Well, the change has to come within you. Now, right now, the president is tugging on the heartstrings of many people that want to buy a house. And I'm going to explain this now to you. If you are wanting to buy a house, you have to understand a few things. There are housing cycles that are very, very real. Tell that to anybody that lived through the 1970s inflation and the subsequent housing collapse in prices, because the Federal Reserve started raising rates, making it harder and harder to buy home. Ultimately, they spiked rates almost to 20% and collapsed the market. The news will not tell you about that, but home prices fell dramatically, and they always do after a sustained period of higher interest rates and costs. We are now in the middle of the real estate crisis, and the greatest part of the crisis is about to begin. Why? There is one thing that is happening. So, unlike any time in the last 100 years, and that is the US government has lost control of having the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, which means we are finding it as a government harder and harder to sell debt around the world because other governments are flat out rejecting the dollar, which means we are finding it harder and harder to raise money to keep things going here in America. So that is adding to the increase in interest rates. For the first time in 100 years, the Federal Reserve has lost control. And this is not a joke. The bond market, the 10-year bond market, which actually mortgage rates follow, has diverged from the Fed funds rate. The Federal Reserve is doing everything they can to try and bluff the markets to try and bring it down, and they're not doing a good job of it. The president knows this, the Federal Reserve knows this, and governments around the world know this. There is now a separation of the one world US dollar system. It is breaking into the BRICS nations versus the Western nations, being Canada, Europe, and the United States. This opportunity is going to be one of the greatest in your life if you realize that if you are having a hard time making ends meet, your friends, your family, and even all of the people around you that you believe to be rich because they live in a big house, they have fancy cars, they even have a driving lawnmower, are in the exact same situation. The facts are US credit card debt, US consumer debt, US household debt, US student loan debt, auto debt are all at record highs. Just like what happened before the bubble popped in 2005. You are experiencing a mania. There is a reason why Bitcoin and gold are hitting all-time highs, because wealthy people are buying them up, preparing, like Warren Buffett, like Jamie Dimon, like Jeff Bezos, are preparing for a crash of the system. This is one of the most, I believe, historic and important presidential elections in history. And if you aren't awake now, I highly encourage you to wake up. Set aside your everyday lifestyle and start to learn about economic cycles. There is nobody talking about this on the internet. I've been talking about this for close to 4 years, and we, as a part of this group of people that subscribe to this channel, which we call ourselves Ninja Nation, because we're a bunch of people that don't appear to have wealth or don't appear to have a savings account. We sort of hide in the shadows. We're preparing for something amazing, something big. But you have to understand that if you start to vote yourself prosperity and looking for a handout, that handout will eventually come in just little drops just to keep you that close to rioting. But there's also a group of people that are ready to riot. Millions of them that are coming over into our country. And when that happens, that's going to be the final draw. The people will be begging for protection. So you need to learn to protect yourself physically, mentally, and financially. And you need to be ready to pounce on the greatest opportunity of your life. But the choice is up to you. Will you take advantage of the downturn like a bunch of wealthy people around the world want to? Or will you sit back and beg for free money that's never going to really come while you pay your taxes, while you try and raise your family? I have to be honest, if your blood is not boiling right now, then you aren't in this fight. Join me, join Ninja Nation, and be a part of a group of what I believe will be over 1 million people in America alone that will be prepared and not scared and get ready for this. Don't fall for these political games, these tricks. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. I guarantee you, over the next 6 months, I will be able to show you things that nobody's teaching, because 99% of the world do not understand economic cycles, and we need to use these cycles for our advantage to become wealthy. And then not only to become wealthy, take that money and be good people with it, because right now the money sits in the bad people's hands, and we need to change that. Thank you to everybody that made the decision to take action today. We don't have a lot of time left. This is going to be the craziest election cycle you've probably ever seen. The Economic Ninja is out.